Yesterday was the final debate in the New York City mayoral race, and I want to play a clip from the debate where Zoram Mamdani, one of the uh, candidates, asks another candidate, Andrew Cuomo, what he would say to the 13 women that he sexually harassed when he was in office as governor. I think that's a great question for anybody who wants to again attain um, office is to be able to respond to findings of sexual harassment, which is pretty serious stuff. Listen as he poses the question and then listen to Andrew Cuomo's response, which is very interesting. And then I'm going to unpack it on the other side.
One of those women, Charlotte Bennett, is here in the audience this evening. What do you say to the 13 women that you sexually harassed?
If you want to be in government, then you have to be serious and mature. There were allegations of sexual harassment. They were then went to 5 district attorneys, fully litigated for 4 years. The cases were dropped, right? You know that as a fact. So everything you just said was a misstatement, which we're accustomed to from you.
Stated was a misstatement?
Yes, because the cases were dropped.
Now, first of all, it's interesting. Mamdani is an excellent debater, and yet he appears to be thrown off by the fact that Cuomo looks him in the eye and flatly states that the claim that he sexually harassed 13 women is not true, based upon the evidence that 5 district attorneys proceeded not to file criminal charges against Andrew Cuomo. So that's his response. Now, what should we think about that? What Cuomo is doing here is he's shifting the baseline. So the question posed by Mamdani is posed on the baseline of the findings of a civil proceeding, of an administrative workplace complaint investigation. And within that context, the finding of sexual harassment or any other allegation is on the balance of probabilities or by a preponderance of the evidence that is more likely than not. So, in a workplace investigation, if Smith makes a complaint of sexual harassment against Jones, for that complaint to be founded and thus to be determined to be factual based on the evidential threshold of an administrative investigation, it has to be more likely than not. And what Cuomo is doing is shifting the baselines from a more likely than not finding to beyond a reasonable doubt finding. And by doing that, he shifts from the civil investigation and administrative investigation to a criminal investigation where the threshold is beyond a reasonable doubt. And district attorneys are not going to file an investigation if they are not convinced or very strongly persuaded that the evidence is likely to result in a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. But the fact that 5 district attorneys did not determine that Andrew Cuomo had committed anything that would be likely to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal proceeding does not follow that he did not engage in sexual harassment. So it's a pretty sneaky way to kind of reframe what the actual truth of the matter is. In fact, there were a couple very significant investigations of Andrew Cuomo from the framework of an administrative threshold of evidence. One of them came from the Department of Justice. Here's a screenshot from that report. And look at the yellow highlighted portion. It says, at the conclusion of the investigation, the United States found that former Governor Cuomo subjected at least 13 women for 13 female employees of New York State, including executive chamber employees, to a sexually hostile work environment. Governor Cuomo repeatedly subjected these female employees to unwelcome non-consensual sexual contact, ogling, unwelcome sexual comments, gender-based nicknames, comments on their physical appearances, and or preferential treatment based on their physical appearances. There was also an investigation undertaken by overseen by Letitia James from the state of New York Office of the Attorney General. And this report of investigation into allegations of sexual harassment by Governor Andrew M. Cuomo is a 168-page investigation, which included review of over, get this, 70,000 documents and interviews of more than, I think, 170 people. Huge, huge investigation. And they found that the threshold of more likely than not, or preponderance of the evidence, had been met that Cuomo sexually harassed 11 women in this investigation. So you have these two investigations that have a wealth of findings against Andrew Cuomo. He says to Mamdani, if you want to be serious in political office, um, what you have to overlook administrative investigation findings? Is that what he's claiming? I would submit to anybody, read this report produced by the state of New York Office of the Attorney General and think if you would be comfortable having Andrew Cuomo as your, let's say, school principal, as your minister, as the manager in your office. And if the answer is no, why would you vote for him for mayor? Now, the big picture here is this, that we are in the Donald Trump age. 10 years ago, Donald Trump brushed off a video where he boasted about sexually assaulting women by saying it was locker room talk. Over the last decade, he's brushed off more than 25 different women who have credibly accused him of various forms of sexual harassment and unwanted or non-consensual sexual touching. He brushed off a civil proceeding from E. Jean Carroll that he had, in fact, engaged in sexual abuse of her, forcibly inserting his fingers into her body. Uh, and what is really sickening are that there are millions of people who shrug their shoulders and support this man who is a sexual predator and adjudicated sexual abuser as president. What a corrupt and toxifying effect that has on society. And you see people like Cuomo shamelessly here brushing off the findings of these administrative investigations that he had in fact engaged in egregious sexual harassment and creating a hostile workplace for multiple women. And he has the audacity to run for office again because we are in the post-shame age. And frankly, I think it is tragic that this overwhelms whatever achievements may have occurred for Me Too, at least when it comes to powerful men. It is true that the Me Too movement has been effective at getting non-powerful men, and occasionally there is a Harvey Weinstein out there, a powerful man who has been taken down by Me Too. But increasingly, I'm seeing powerful men who have been able to brush off the Me Too movement because of the toxifying effect of a Donald Trump age.